Before we dive into JavaScript, I want to show you what we're really trying to achieve. I've said that we are looking at JSON, and on the screen I've got some JSON. The format is sort of in key pair values, so it starts with a curly brace, then I've got a key which is person, and then I've got a value which is an array, and it ends with a curly brace. And for my next record I separate those with commas. So that is JSON, and JSON is, how can I put it, it's random. We don't know what the information is. It could be anything. We've just pulled it from our database and we've built it, and that is our hardest thing to deal with, is the actual random nature of these fields. There is several versions of JSON. First of all, let me show you what we are trying to achieve. So if I just load up this file, there we go. What we're trying to do is plot points on a Google map, or do something with it. As you can see, I've got features here with circles showing earthquakes and the severity of the earthquakes around the world. This is just from one of the Google Maps tutorials, so I can't take credit for this. But it's pulling information from JSON. It's using a particular kind of JSON. This one is using jsonp, which is a method using a callback function. There is another one called GEOjson. So let's take a look at GeoJson. GeoJson. So where's the wiki? There we go. So GeoJson is a particular form of JSON. It still has the same notation. In other words, it starts off with a curly brace, and then we've got a key and a value, and then separate the records with a comma. But in GeoJson, it really is made for geographic coordinates, and the format is always the same. So this is used by many different programs, such as LiDAR information for gaining images from space, looking through the trees instead of radar, or maybe you have a database showing different coordinates and where things are on the planet or around the place. What I'm trying to say is that this has a predefined format, and because it has a predefined format, it's called GeoJson. There's nothing random in here. We're not going to find field names such as age and last name in anything like this. It's always going to be of this kind. The nice thing about this is when you are playing around with Google Maps is already set up so that with minimal coding you can include GeoJson, and it's quite easy to plot these coordinates. There is another version of JSON which I've already mentioned, which is the one that this used, which is called jsonp, and that stands for JSON with padding. Basically what jsonp is just JSON as you normally see it. So here we go, here's our JSON with the curly brackets and then the key value pairings. But the difference is that when we make a call to the, and this is a get request, when we make a call, it includes something called a callback function, and the callback function on this one is pass response. So that's what jsonp is it's got a callback function, and it's also included in the data, although it's not shown here, that the first part, the first key value pair, would be the name of the callback function, and in this case it will be called pass response. Now that's a special method. It's just JSON with an added extra. It's padded out with the callback function. Now if you did the last series of videos, if we were in sort of Android using the Java, we had a callback function there called post execute. So that's just telling when it's finished its work, and this is asynchronous, when it's finished its work, pass the results back to a function called pass response, and then inside pass response there'll be a load of code which either populates a map or does something else with it. It does not have to be like GeoJSON coordinates around the world. It can be fairly random. The difference is that it includes both the callback function on the URL and also that information in your JSON when you're setting it up. The one that we use is just plain JSON, and we know what plain JSON is. We can see plain JSON just a bit above, which is just this. And that is the hardest one, as I said, to use for things like Google Maps, because it doesn't know how to handle the data. It hasn't got a function. It's not given a function where to send the data to be processed. So we'd have to actually create that function and manage that ourselves. Also, it's not coordinates. So if we're doing coordinates from our own database, maybe we'd want to use GeoJSON, that format. But if we've just got latitude and longitude and we return it to our JSON parser as plain JSON, we're going to have to pick that information out and say what to do with it in a Google Map API. It's a little harder, but if you can master the JSON side of it, then the JSonp and the GeoJSON would be very, very much easier, particularly when working with Google Maps. And just to mention that there are more than just GeoJSON. We've got this one here, TopoJSON. There's many different kinds of JSON, but when they're sort of named like this, TopoJSON or GeoJSON, they have a definite structure to them, and it should be the same for each single record. So that's a quick look at JSON. Our difficulty is managing with just plain JSON. Because it's random, because we don't know what's coming, we have to handle that, and JavaScript, it can be a little difficult to play with for it. And we're also going to look at the asynchronous way of actually getting that data, but I will start with the synchronous method.